This is happiness, to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Mood Prep. My name is Dave Nixon, and today on episode number 90 I'm going to ask the question, is anger a weakness? I saw a quote. I often talk about the Daily Stoic, the book, a lot, and they have an Instagram page which is just at Daily Stoic, not the Daily Stoic, just Daily Stoic. And I saw a post there the other day, and it was, anger is not impressive or tough, it's a mistake, it's weakness. And I think that actually was from the Daily Stoic book. It doesn't seem to quote any previous Stoic philosopher. I think it came from that book, but it got me thinking, and I was like, do I agree with that or not? And I'm like, I think it has a nice premise, but I probably don't agree with it. I don't agree that anger is a weakness. And I'm going to pull it apart today for you and tell you why. Now, 2 posts later, it comes up and it says, an angry man opens his mouth and shuts his eyes. And that's Cato the Elder. Now, once again, a really good premise, and I think there is some truth to that, but I'm going to tell you why I don't actually agree with that completely. And there's one more quote around anger that I want to share with you that I remember hearing quite some time ago, and it stuck with me. And it was that the first person to get angry loses. And although that quote itself can't be applied to every single situation and every single person, I think as a global sort of concept, it's very true. But you could probably extend it to the point of the first person to display his anger loses, right? Because anger is an emotion, and this is where I don't believe that anger is a weakness. And anger is simply an emotion. It's a normal reaction to particular things occurring, and it's useful. Anger has uses in the same way happiness has uses, in the same way sadness has uses. And if we aren't able to recognize it, if we oppress it, or repress it rather, then what happens is that it's going to show up somewhere else. And often it's going to show up when we're not conscious of it showing up, and it'll probably show up in more passive ways, or maybe it will show up on the person, it shows our prejudices or something along those lines. It's going to be different for each person. But if we go into the idea that the emotion of anger is a weakness, then every single one of us has a part of us then is that weakness. Because at what point does anger become a strength? It's like, well, when we recognize anger as a beacon rather than we see anger as being the truth, right? Because a lot of the time when we're angry with something, we're not actually angry with the thing, we're angry with how it represents to us. The anger isn't outside of us, it's within us, and it actually gives us a good indication of what's going on inside if we just so desire to inquire about it. And so anger itself is actually very useful. And the beautiful thing about anger is that if you are able to recognize that you're angry, you're able to just sort of feel that emotion and stay with it, you actually stay vulnerable. And when you stay vulnerable, then that's when you can make changes. It's when you can make good by actually accepting the fact that you're angry or what's making you angry, and is it something that's actually lacking in you as opposed to lacking outside of you. And the beautiful thing about vulnerability is that anger as itself is not strength, right? Anger may be a simple ingredient within some strength. I think there's a certain level of that. However, vulnerability has so much strength to it. And the reason why vulnerability has so much strength to it is because vulnerability can lead us through our ego traps. And that's why there's strength, because on the other side of our ego traps is often freedom. And then that's where strength lies. So strength lies when I'm worried more about how I think about me than what you think about me, as opposed to worrying about me trying to impress you. And so if I try and impress you, then I'm going to act outside of me. And at some point, if I'm oppressing my anger, if I'm trying to be someone that I think you might like, and then I'm acting outside of myself in order to do all of this, then I can't be vulnerable, because I'm never myself. And I'm probably going to be angry underlying everything, because I have this underlying resentment, which is closely related to anger, that you're not accepting me, when the reality is I'm not accepting me, right? If I don't accept me, then I try and find acceptance outside of me. And that's when people will act out, that's when people will do something different to what they would genuinely do, because I don't love me enough, but will you love me if I act differently? And then the resentment kicks in over time because you don't do what I wanted you to do, but I didn't tell you. And then that turns into anger and so on. So the most important thing about anger is actually recognizing when you are angry. It sounds ridiculous, but we need to be able to understand that anger isn't a negative emotion. It's a very useful emotion. In fact, it's a very strong beacon, and it can tell you a lot. Now, where anger becomes interesting is a couple of things. One, when we recognize anger as just an energy, we can do anything with it. We can use it for whatever the fuck we want to use it for, because anger is simply just energy. And if we waste that energy just holding onto this hot coal, hoping that the other person is upset or offended, or that they fall over in whatever that metaphor wants to stand for, then we're actually just holding onto this hot. We ourselves are getting burnt when you hold on to anger. Either when you repress it or you stay with it as all the time, you become it. I am angry. I identify with anger, as opposed to seeing it for what it is and moving through it and using it as a form of energy rather than being the emotion. That's a big difference. The other thing is that if we're not careful, if we move past vulnerability, if we lose our compassion, our empathy, we turn anger into aggression and we dehumanize other people, right? And this is very, very dangerous, because when we start to dehumanize other people, it's usually the people that are closest to us that we love the most in day-to-day relations. And what ends up happening is that we end up treating them like a thing rather than a living organism that they are, right? And it's true to the quote of, we should go back to loving people and using things, not loving things and using people, because that's when we dehumanize everything, and it's because we've dehumanized ourselves. So aggression can be valid in some areas. I think there is a very tiny, small, minute need, and a lot less now than it was 2,000 years ago, when it was, before then, when it was wired into us. But either way, that need for aggression is crucial. It's just when it's applied is like, you will need it very rarely throughout your life. But it still comes down to the quote of, a dangerous man, and take this for a woman as well. A harmless man is not a good man. A dangerous man, a good man is a very, very dangerous man that has it under voluntary control, right? And I'm going to leave this whole anger conversation with this, because I'm going to go a bit further and I'm going to give you my thoughts on this. It's like, I don't believe you're truly a man until you can control your anger. And what I mean by control is not to, once again, repress it. I mean control as in see it for what it is. Do not turn into aggression. Do not let compassion leave your side, and empathy, and do not let your ability to move into the other person's shoes and see from a different point of view. Until you can control it rather than let anger control you, I don't believe you can be a man in whole, thoroughly. And women, I don't believe that you can step into your full womanhood until you can accept that there's certain parts of you when you're angry, and that it's okay, and that it's normal to be angry. Because I know, it may not be you specifically, but I know there's been a lot of women out there that have been told that you're not allowed to get angry, or you're not allowed to display it, or whatever, and that's bollocks. That's repression of it, right? And the issue with that is that it's going to show up, and it's going to show up in ugly ways. So accept when you're angry, and once again, use it. Stay in it in order to be able to be vulnerable with it, to move through it. Team, that's it. I'm done. Thank you very much for listening. As always, if you found this podcast interesting, I'd love it if you would share. I love all the fact that you guys post this on your Insta stories. If I ever see it and you tag me at DDNix, DDNIX, I'll share it again as well. But thank you so much. I love you guys for listening. It means the world to me. Otherwise, jump online, jump on Facebook. Mood Prep Online is a group there, and it's free up until the end of this month, and then there's some changes happening which will be on my website soon. Otherwise, if you're considering jumping on there, jump on there now. July the 1st, things change. So, team, until next time, peace and pizza, kick today in the dick, and slay the dragon. I'll see you soon.
To be everything at once, be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.